Hello, and welcome back. This video is about slowing things down with a sticky mud effect. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. Since we're going to use some starter content, but you may not have included it when you first created the project, let's do that now. You can click the Add button over here, or in your Content folder, right-click, gives you the same list. Go to Add Feature or Content Pack. In here, you can click on Content, Start a Content, Add to Project. With that done, I'm going to go back to the Towers folder. I'm going to right-click, click on a Niagara System. In this big window that pops up that changed recently, I'm going to select Empty and just hit Create. I'm going to name this ns_sticky mud. And when we open that up, we can go to Emitter Update and add a spawn rate. Has a nice suggested area here. In the spawn rate, we're going to want this up very high at 100. Next, I want a particle spawn initialize particle. We're going to set the lifetime to 1 second. This lifetime will end up affecting the animation that we'll see in the sub UV section coming up. I want the color mode just set to direct. I'm going to put in a brown color. I'm just setting a hex sRGB value here to 954535. And then in render, sprite renderer, I want to set the material to a sub UV type. We're going to use fire. This was in the starter content. With that, I want to open up sub UV down here. And you can see in the little image here, or you can open it up, it's a 6x6 frames of animation. Next we go into particle spawn. We're adding a shape location, which is also in the suggested list. We're going to use a cylinder in this case. We want it to be quite small. The height won't really matter because it's vertical. We'll just set that to 20. Radius of 100 is fine. And then in our particle update, we want to add the sub UV animation. We're going to select the sprite renderer for sprite renderer. Our starting frame starts with a, 8x8, so we can just set these both to 0 to 35. And there you can see what it looks like. We'll just save that, close that. Next, I'm going to the gas folder. I'm going to create a new gameplay effect. This is a blueprint class. Which search for gameplay effect. I'm going to call this GE Sticky Mud. In here, I want a has duration. We're going to set the duration to 0.5 seconds. We're going to add a modifier and a component. The component is grant tags to target actor. Click this in here. We click the plus sign. I'm going to type in debuff.stickymud. Select a source. Hit add new tag and select it. And then in the modifiers, what this is doing is taking the enemy speed and we're just multiplying it by 0.5. Now, if you've used gas a bunch, you may know that this multiplication isn't actually a multiplication. It does some weird stuff in the behind the scenes. As far as I understand, what it's doing is it's actually taking the base value, because this value here is less than 1. It's actually subtracting half from the base value. So if you were to apply this effect multiple times, you could actually get a move speed that is negative. And that should never happen if it was actually multiplying it by 0.5. And we'll leave that as is to show that in a few minutes. All right, so then in our wave manager, which is under blueprints, I'm going to take our get furthest enemy because it has some stuff that I want to reuse. I'm going to duplicate that, call this get enemies in range. Zoom back in here. So what we're doing is we're iterating through our enemies loop. We're making sure the enemy is within range of the location that we set or send in, with the range being that radius. We can delete all of this over here and this. We have local variables. We can get rid of the high dist, rename the high enemy to the enemies. We're going to convert that to an array. Yes, I want to change the variable type. That has an issue here. So then we also need to change this to enemies in range. And that will also be an array. And all we're doing here is, as long as it's in range, we're just taking the enemies array, adding that new entry to it. And that's all we're sending back out. Next, we can create a Sticky Mud blueprint. It's just going to be an actor named BP underscore Sticky Mud. And Sticky Mud, we're going to create a function. We'll just call it apply debuff. The point of this function is to get the wave manager. That's from our utility library. We're going to ensure that this is valid. And we're going to use that to get enemies in range. Our location is our actor location. And we're just going to go to a radius of 100. With that array, we're going to do a for each. And for each enemy, we will get the ability system component so that we can just apply that gameplay effect. In our event graph here, in our begin play, we're going to first set a timer by event. We're going to have this tick every half second. It will be looping. We drag off the event here, call add custom event. We can just call this pulse stickiness. And all that's doing is calling apply debuff. Now, as soon as our sticky mud is created, we also want to apply that debuff right away, so we'll also just call it directly. And lastly, we want to set a lifetime for this. So we'll call set lifespan, set it to 4 seconds. And then in our catapult projectile, we can go into our functions. We want to hover over here, click override on hit target. So when the target is hit, it initially would call the parent. If we double click that, we go to the parent, we see what it's doing is damaging the enemy that was hit, or the target, which was the enemy that was hit, and then destroying the actor. So remembering that this is here, very important. So we go back. We don't want to actually call the parent version. Instead, all we're doing here is we're spawning actor. The actor is our sticky mud. Now with the spawn transform, you could do get actor, actor transform. The problem is that's sending along the location, which is good, the rotation, which is fine because it's probably 0 in both cases, and then sending along the scale. So if you did that and then for some reason you had a projectile which like 5 times the size as normal, that would scale the size of the sticky mud as well. So instead, we're just going to delete that, right click this, split the struct, and all we want is the actor location. And then again, we're calling destroy actor here. Now with it all running, we can see when we create our catapult tower, we'll shoot out. We will then forget to add the Niagara system. So in our sticky mud, we want to just add a component. You search for Niagara. That name is fine, and we're just choosing our sticky mud. So now when we fire that catapult projectile, you can see there, it's a small circle that's slowing the stuff that's in it. So now this is working a little differently than it did in my prep project, which is weird. It seems to be working just fine now, but if you get into a situation where you're doing something like this and it looks like it's supplying multiple stacks to the target, you can resolve that by going into the gameplay effect, going to stacking type down here. We want aggregate by target, and we want our stack limit count to 1. So let's say I set this to 5. Apply the debuff, which is applying every half second. And there you go. You can see that the remove speed has been set to negative because it's applying multiple multiplies. But as I said, the multiplies are actually subtracting the value. So it looks very, very weird. So if you have that issue, you want to set this here to 1. And then all should be good. And then it shouldn't matter how many of these you have. All right, thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.